Okay, Kiri, thank you so much for coming on. You were just saying you're about to go on vacation. How's that going to go?
Well, we'll see how it's going to go. Sorry, I'm just sorting out my video and my setup. Um, yeah, I'm supposed to not be talking about the business at all. And if I talk about the business, I'm not allowed to drink matcha, and I'm obsessed with matcha. So that's going to be really hard. So I'm going to have to not talk about the business.
Oh, matcha is absolutely delicious. My wife has one of those, I think, every single day, and
Yeah,
I love them too. I just got to be careful because of the caffeine in my skin and whatnot. But
yeah,
I can imagine if you run your own business,
yeah.
you have to it runs deep into your own life. Is that not correct?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's my little baby, and I guess we'll talk about this because my husband and I started the business together. We own the business 50-50, but of course, I'm the boss. Um, yeah, but yeah, I'm very invested in it, and I'm emotionally invested in our customers' journeys because I've had my own skin concerns myself. So yeah, it's a 24/7 job, even though I've got staff, because I'm the face of the brand.
Yeah, well, I've heard a lot of entrepreneurs and stuff on YouTube, and they talk about how their job takes up so much of their time. But to be honest, if you own your own business and it's something you're passionate about,
Mm.
like for me, whenever I get talking about things like TSW or aliens or drumming and stuff like that, I can't stop. And then it's 10 o'clock at night, and I've worked super hard, but I almost don't even notice that it happens. Is it the same for you, or?
Yeah, and I'm often told to put the phone down. And my psychologist, who I've started to see even more regularly as we scale the business, is like, you've got to have some things for yourself. And I mean, we've been in business for 7 years, but I've been doing this since I went through steroid withdrawals myself for probably 11 or 12 years now. So, there was a startup phase, there was a journey to get here, and I feel like I've sort of lost myself a bit because it is a 24/7 breathe, eat, live your business, especially since my business partner, even though I'm the boss, is my husband. So yeah, you do lose yourself, and you have to remember to find what you love that's not related to the business, which for me is really hard because the business is about holistic health. It's about mindfulness. It's about looking after your wellness holistically, looking after your skin, but also looking about your gut health, looking after your gut health, but also looking about after your mental health as well.
Yeah, yeah. If you don't mind, have you found something that helps you get your mind off of it?
Yeah, I've got a lot of coping mechanisms in my toolkit, but I mean everyone's still learning every day. I have a skin toolkit, I have a mental health toolkit, I have I guess staff toolkit. There's lots of different toolkits. But for my mental health, it's trying to take time out of the business. It's setting my phone to do not disturb. It's telling
Oh
myself
yeah.
not to read an email after hours, which sometimes has to happen because sometimes there's business opportunities that are amazing because we sell around the world, and I answer an email from another business entrepreneur overseas. But yeah, and I now do mindfulness meditation 20 minutes, and I fall asleep to the sound of waves crashing on the beach, and then my husband turns it off as he comes to bed. But yeah, there's lots of things that we have to do, both of us. Go to the gym. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I feel you there. I mean, I haven't had as much of a chance to be as busy as I suppose you are, but since launching the podcast, I mean, that's one of the things. Whenever I was in a job, I felt like a cog in a wheel, and now that I'm doing this, I'm finding myself editing well into the night and everything, and trying to, because I think it really ties in with your actual business as well. It's just about balance, right?
Mm,
I think the whole reason we get into these situations, especially topical steroid withdrawal, is because
mm,
we have busy lives and we just want to hide it and we just want to get on with it. And I think, I mean, if you don't have TSW, if you don't have skin concerns, like there's a lot of high performers out there and they do things where like tasks where they have no choice but to completely drown out the rest of the world. Like some people play pool or some people go surfing where you can't check your phone. You can't do this and that. And I think today is just so crazy to like this day and age. There's so much toxic physical stuff in our environment and mentally. And how do you factor into that with maybe your condition and also your business?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard. There's another level for me because I am also the face of the brand. So, like, we're still growing. Yes, I do have 9 staff. I do have people to help me, but they're like, I need you to be in this video. I need you to answer this email because it would be better coming from you. So there's this other layer to it. So it's kind of not the same as having a service-based business. I mean, everything's different, but I'm always the face of the brand. I always talk to a customer who's going through TSW. Like it's judged on the case by case basis. But if it's like someone I need to talk to, I get on and I have to talk to them, and it's me behind the phone. So yeah, there's so much going on. There's so much to do, and I like doing red light therapy with music, or I like doing a float tank with music where you can't take your phone and you just have to lie there. So, even though you've got so much to do, you can't look at any technology. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So hard to put that thing down. It becomes a reflex, right? It's like, oh my goodness. Well, how do you approach, there's so many questions I want to ask you, but how do you approach your customers, because everyone is so differently? I know you have different regimes and stuff, but and we have plenty of time, but could you dive in a little bit on how you found how to treat different people differently? If that makes any sense.
Well, I mean, it's actually just being another human being and approaching them as another human being. But I think that I've got, and incidentally, all my staff have been customers basically, except for one, and now she's converted. So like my whole team's here, and they were once a customer and they once got helped by someone or me in the business. I think it's just approaching people as another human being, but understanding that they're beside themselves, they're anxious, because I was in that position myself. I didn't get enough care when I was sick, when I was having skin issues, and there was so many mixed messages, and yes, everyone's different, but if you just lay out the facts and try and solve the problem from their perspective and stand in their shoes, I guess it's like, treat them as the way that you'd like to be treated yourself, I guess. And we help people with so many skin concerns because I have so many people that I can tap into and ask questions of, and we refer people to allergy specialists and hematologists and endocrinologists and that sort of stuff. And I've done a lot of training, but also I've lived these things myself. Like I've lived acne, I've lived allergies, so like contact dermatitis. I've lived steroid withdrawals. I'm living perimenopause and rosacea. So I know someone and always ask questions, because even if you know a certain amount of scientific data or scientific studies or the way the skin works or the way skincare works, and you know about skin concerns and you've experienced them yourself, you can never know 100% until you're 100% in somebody else's shoes. I mean, a classic example is every TSW is journey is different because everyone's used different things and everyone's on different in different locations and is exposed to different irritants, and there's just a million and one things that affect how someone's bodies react to their environment, or an immune dysfunction and presents itself as a skin concern, for example.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really impressive to see how much you work with your clients, because I mean, I've tried to do a bunch of research on your website and as many videos as I could, and you do these regimes that are specific to the person. I don't know if you still do them now, but at one point you were doing like skin coaching.
Yeah.
And you're promoting, we use the word holistic all the time, but it's true, holistic health and, preventing things, diet. And, it just strikes me that, it takes someone on the outside of the medical system, at least as far as I know, you're outside the medical system, to do something in such a holistic manner. And I think people who are going through TSW know fully well how tiring it is to be suffering for months and months on end. And then you go to a doctor who wants to help you, but they don't know anything about what you're going through. And I feel like not enough people realize the pure trauma that even just normal eczema or acne can be, right? Mm. Like, I think it's really cool to have someone out there that can point you in different directions. You said, you point people to allergists and this and that. Oh, well, how is it over in Australia, by the way? Because I know over in North America, we have quite a bit of trouble with the medical community on trying to get this recognized. And I know in the UK, for example, they've made some progress. Is it kind of the same over there, or?
I mean, we ship to the US. I've been to the US. We ship to the UK. We've got stockists in the UK. The US and the UK populations are quite a lot larger than Australia's population. So if we look at the incidence of skin concerns or steroid withdrawals or topical steroid withdrawals, for example, there is per capita not as high a percentage as places like, for instance, the UK, because let's be honest, the water in the UK, for example, can affect everyone's skin and hair, and that's why there are lots of people using steroids in fact, when they should have just booked into an allergist and may not, like, they could have solved the problem right at the start. They were fed the wrong information, whatever. Australia is very progressive, even though we're a small country, a new country versus other countries, obviously. We don't have such a long history. We have really great water, we have really great air, we have really great holistic practitioners. And, I consider myself to be part of the holistic wellness community now, and a voice for skincare and a voice for steroid withdrawals here. We're always advocating, and my advocacy personally and also as a business is like, I have a small voice, but it's amplified by the people that I talk to, who then tell their friends, who then find a nurse who's in emergency, and that nurse who's in emergency realizes that the person that's in emergency right now is actually suffering from steroid withdrawal. She's not suffering from severe eczema, and tells the doctor, and the doctor says, okay, all right, this is what we're going to do. So we've made less progress officially, but I feel like there's advocacy going on here, and I'm just proud to be a part of that. Like, I know, for instance, Brianna from who has the Preventable documentaries. We're always part of what the work she does, and we're just little old Amperna, but then there's like lots of other brands from the US and the UK, which unfortunately it's the way it is because Australia is small, but we amplify our message.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny you say Brianna Banos because she was the previous guest. She just came on, and
Yeah.
I think that anybody who chooses to put their mind to it, they really make a difference. I mean, we're talking about I think you met him, but Kyle, who was in the CAP clinic,
Yeah.
you know, his videos were so helpful. And maybe if you're looking to get thousands and thousands of views, you might not get that, at least now with TSW. But the amount of people out there who are so hungry for information, just any sort of reliable
Yeah.
people to talk to about this, they will find it. And that's one of the most incredible things I've noticed. And I thanked Brianna for this because, like 5 years ago, there was almost nothing about TSW, but it's about people like her, people like yourself, people like Kyle, people like Mariette, people
Yeah.
like Jay,
Yeah.
people like Olivia Friedman, that I say this over and over again, but I really think if you're going to go through TSW, this is like the best time to do it.
Yeah. I mean, you're saying 5 years ago. My experience was nearly 14 years ago. So there was
Oh,
absolutely nothing. My husband found a medical journal and it was buried on some website. He's a programmer, so he's good with the Google. But I was so sick and he's just like, what the hell is going on with you? So yeah, like 13 or 14 years ago, there was no TikTok, there was no Instagram, which is why, I mean, unfortunately, it is good that people are, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. It's great that people have all this information, but I mean, I say it all the time. I wouldn't wish what I went through on anyone, really.
no.
But at least there's information for you if you find yourself in that position, which is why we're doing all the advocacy that we can.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I really relate to that fire that happens inside you when you realize that this is something that is real and is happening to you, and that horrible dread fills you up. I guess I can speak for myself here that when I see other people going through the same thing and they're just as lost as I was, I'm just like, I have to do everything I can to make this never happen again if I can. And I was talking with Brianna a little bit about this, but seeing kids going through it, and
Yeah.
that just really, really bothers me. But there's something really interesting that I'm noticing, the patterns with the people that I'm privileged to talk to, is that they go through this and either they get better and move on, and then there's the people who get better and they keep that fire inside of them and they decide to do something about it. And I hope that more and more people are from the latter, because we need those people. They make such huge waves in the community.
Yeah. And that person knows someone who knows someone in government, or that person knows someone who's a businessman who's been through steroid withdrawals and didn't know it, who's a billionaire, who can help you in other ways, right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, totally. Could you tell the story of what happened to you with your skin, with topical steroids and
Yeah.
stuff like that?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is how I remember it. And you've got to remember that I was so sick that I couldn't walk and couldn't feed myself. So, so when I was 29, I'm now 43, turning 44. My husband and I were my father's sole carers, and my father wasn't a nice man and he hadn't looked after himself his whole life. I'm half Ukrainian. He came he was meant to go to Melbourne but came to Sydney and fled Stalin. And here we are again with somebody else dictating in Russia again. But he was an only child and his mother did everything for him. And he, now I know, had mental health issues, which I have inherited. But we never knew because he never went to the doctor. He had no medical records. He had no dental records. And he separated from my mother, couldn't look after himself because everyone did everything for him, and went downhill very quickly. In about a year and a half, he was dead. And
Wow.
during that time, Wesley and I were looking after him, and it was absolutely soul destroying. And if I could do it again, I wouldn't do it again, because basically the experience almost killed me. Yeah, like the care, the aged care here is better than some countries, but it still needs work. And he was so young; he was 59 when I
Oh,
needed care
wow.
for him. And at 29, you don't think that your 59-year-old father is going to need to be in an aged care facility and being babysat, otherwise they'll set themselves on fire. So I was extremely stressed, and I started dropping weight. I started having hormone issues. I started getting some like pimples, hormonal acne. It started with a few, like just underneath my jawline and on my chin. And I then, because my gut health was out of whack, I then started to get full body hives. So I don't have a history of eczema. I have a history of acne. So I'm allergic to things. I'm allergic to everything. So I haven't used topical steroids in my lifetime very often because I didn't want to use them. And I knew it was better that I wear a hat and avoid the tree that I was allergic to, instead of trying to suppress the problem and just continue to be exposed to my allergen. Like, I knew all that. But I was looking after Dad, and I started to get full body hives, and I started not to be able to shower, and I started dropping more weight. So I went to get medication for my skin and for my anxiety and stress. And I was given medication for my mental health, for my anxiety and depression. And I was given medication for my full body hives. And the medication for my full body hives was a short, high dose of prednisone. I had a white bottle, and the tablets rattled around in the bottom of the bottle, so there weren't many. And I can't tell you now how many, because at this stage I was already half delirious, like I was already shaking. What I know now is that I know that I'd started to suffer from adrenal fatigue. And I was given this medication, and it just made everything worse. I had side effects, I dropped more weight, and it got to the point where I said to Wesley, I need help. We need to do something. I need to go to hospital. So this was when I was still coherent. We went to the public health system, the emergency, and at this stage, I was worse. I'm not a large person. I'd dropped about 15 kilos, maybe more, and my acne was getting worse, and I was itchy all over, and I was told that you've got some acne, you've lost some weight, you've got some itchy skin, go on Roaccutane, get some steroids, go home. I've got people dying, which obviously, I mean, totally, I get it. Our emergency departments are everywhere, are like bursting basically. But I did need help. I knew I needed help because I knew my own body. So Wesley and I went back to the prescribing doctor. We went to see other people, and basically we were given the wrong information because there was no such thing as steroid withdrawals.
Yeah.
Until Wesley found the information, he went, hold a second, you actually could be in steroid dependency and adrenal fatigue. We actually probably should stop you on the steroid. But he didn't say stop, because his sister actually had been on prednisone for cancer, because she had cancer as a child twice. So he knew that we couldn't stop, right? That's as much as he knew, but we went to more specialists to get more advice, and the specialist didn't know me, didn't know that I was so sensitive, and I was told to stop, even though I'd already started to wean down. And he's like, nah, let's just stop. And I can't really remember what happened next, but basically I woke up. I remember waking up. I remember not being able to walk. I was helped to the bathroom. I felt like I was going to die. And then I looked in the mirror, like I already felt bad. And then I looked in a mirror, and within 24 hours, 48 hours, I had a face full of severe pustular acne, and I couldn't see me anymore down here, like all down here. And I don't have photos because it was so bad. And I screamed, and I was put back to bed, and Wesley was like, didn't know what to do. And kind of that's all I really remember. And I remember thinking, I've got to take a steroid again because this is so bad. So I reached for what I thought was a steroid, and I think it was the medication for my depression. And the next thing I knew, I was in hospital because an ambulance had been called for me. And I remember being half delirious, I think, in an ambulance with people around my head. And then I woke up in hospital.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Yeah.
When you were going through it, you say you don't remember a lot of it. Do you think it's because you were, like you said, delirious, or do you think that like it's a PTSD sort of thing
I think
where
it's both. Like when I was feeling a little bit better and I was able to like get up and be helped to a chair in hospital, because I didn't stay in the public system. I got sent home again. I had to check myself into a private health facility, and I don't really know timelines. What I remember is after going to emergency and coming back home, being discharged, I said to Wesley, I can't get discharged again. What are we going to do? And then I signed my legal rights over to Wesley, and I was a minor, and I went to a private hospital, and lucky we had health insurance. But I think it's kind of PTSD, but it's also kind of the fact that my body had shut down and I couldn't even feed myself with food properly. And the reason I went to a private facility, and I think the timeline was that I was in there for a month and a half to 2 months. I don't really know. And you can imagine how expensive that would have been.
Oh my God.
But yeah, like it is PTSD. Even if I talk like 14 years ago, I still like get triggered by things. 14 years on, I still get triggered by things. But yeah, it's probably half PTSD and half not knowing what was going on, because like literally I couldn't put a fork to my mouth. Like
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, see, this is what really upsets me when people don't understand. They're like, "Oh, you have some bad rashes," or "Oh, you're just itchy." Like most people don't truly understand how traumatic it is when your skin, like, let alone you're talking about all these other symptoms, but let's just talk about the skin for a second. Just
Yeah.
not being able to recognize yourself.
Mm.
I think it was Natalie Wright, who was the first guest on the show. She was saying, she coined it so perfectly. It's like you mourn the loss of yourself, but you're still there, and you just remember the life you used to have. And I'm so sorry that happened to you. And I ask you the story because I think more people just need to tell it how it was, because this stuff is no joke and it needs to stop. Seriously. Like,
Yeah.
End of story.
Yeah.
What did you do to get better? How long did it take before you started feeling more normal again?
Yeah. So firstly, I want to make a point, and often like professionals come for me, like, because I have an opinion, and I want to say I'm not against medication. What I'm against is the lack of duty of care and the lack of information and the lack of proper treatment and the lack of empathy. That's what I'm against. So just wanted to start with that. So
Yeah.
I was anti medication, and I'm still like, I started the brand so that I never have to touch any form of that sort of stuff again. Never, right? But I was in hospital for a month and a half or 2 months. Then I went home. I had active acne for about 9 months. I had a break off work, I think in total for nearly a year. And again, I had salary insurance. Thank gosh for Wesley's family, whose daughter had cancer twice, who Wesley was sick when he was young, and they've always had really great private health insurance because they had to. And it's not that I didn't have private health insurance, it's just that I'd let mine lapse and when I'd moved in with Wesley. So we were already married when I was sick. So we've been together for 20 years, and I have all the insurances. We have all the insurances personally, and we have all the insurances for the business because of what I went through, because my hospital stay and my time off work was actually all covered.
Wow.
And there are so many people out there that are not in my position. And I was privileged, even though I was half dead. I just can't, I talk to people that are single mothers who are going through TSW or whose family just don't believe that they're really sick. At least I had support from family, and if I didn't have money, like I was told not to worry about it, Wesley's family probably would have helped somehow, right? But there's so many people that don't have that. So yeah, I went to hospital. I was in hospital for 1.5, 2 months. I was off work for 12 months. I had active acne for 9 months. It basically in total probably took me about two to 3 years to feel like myself again. So after 2 years, there's a photo of me in Tokyo because we wanted a holiday after all that, right? Still skinny, still red-faced, 2 years on.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, that's no joke. That's no joke. And I appreciate that you say, you're not fully against medication, because there are absolutely instances where you need to use it. And you have people who have eczema herpeticum when they're going through TSW, or they have an infection. And I mean, you went to Bangkok to learn all about that stuff. So but if using a medication irresponsibly at the behest of your doctors does that, and it takes years for you to get better, then what are we doing wrong here? Somebody needs to stop. And that's again why I really appreciate that you have this business. And thank you for sharing your story. Trying to think of what else I want to get into here. I think it would be really cool to transfer a little bit over into your company, and maybe how did you discover the ingredients you wanted to use, and what products you wanted to do, what things you wanted to attack, if that's okay.
Yeah. So when I was feeling a little bit better, I thought to myself, I've been through all of this, like you've said, I don't want anyone else to go through it. What do I do? Like, I'd started working part-time back in the design industry. So my background's FMCG, so fast-moving consumer goods. So everything you see in a supermarket, the design industry, and new product development and marketing. And I'd realised that part of the reason that I'd got into the situation was not knowing my own limits, but also working in that industry in the first place, because as a female in a male dominated industry because it was marketing, packaging design, artwork, in advertising agencies and packaging design agencies in Sydney. It's very insular here. I was up against men. I was a creative director and an artwork director, and because I looked younger, I wasn't also taken seriously. And I worked long hours, so I knew I didn't want to do that again. But I had to rely on that part time, and I freelanced while I was working out what I actually wanted to do. And I suddenly thought, like, I want to help people holistically. And in order to help people holistically, I have to start and get money from somewhere. So, what am I going to do? And I'd discovered gut health when I was, struggling with my own skin. And I'm allergic to absolutely everything. And I can't use traditional acne medications. Remembering this is like, what? Like 12 years ago, let's say, approximately, because we launched in 2018. There was 5 years of R&D before that, and we've been in business for 7 years, nearly 7 years in February next year. There was nothing on the market that I could use in the situation that I was in, because there was no TSW information, there was no acne treatments that supported the biome. There was no holistic service that I could go to get someone's advice. If you do A plus B and C, you'll get to D. Then we've got to do E and F. And if you do that, you'll be fine, right? There's no one objectively acting like a detective and really in it for the person that is suffering from the skin concern. There's all these mixed messages. Everyone wants to sell things. And then I thought to myself, well, this is kind of funny, because you're saying everyone wants to sell everything in your brain, and you had people sell you stuff, and now you're telling me you want to sell stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but if I do it transparently and honestly, and I do it sustainably, and I price myself below other products with similar efficacies, surely I can help more people, right? I knew I wanted to do the holistic coaching. I knew I wanted to do the training. And I'm like, but how do I do that? I'm a graphic designer with X amount of years at this stage in the packaging design industry. I know nothing about holistic health, and I know nothing about product. I need money somehow. What do I do? So then I started doing all this research. I started getting things to help my own skin ages ago. And then I found a topical probiotic ingredient buried in a research journal about how you have a biome on your skin as well as having one in your gut. And I'm like, I Googled it and no one was talking about it. And I'm like, right, I'm going to order a raw sample of this ingredient direct from the supplier. I'm just going to pay however much it costs, and I'm going to put it on my skin, patch test like a native ingredient, and then I'm going to do I'll find a compounding chemist and somebody that'll help me, and I'll work out whether this is a thing. And I didn't know it, but my skin loved it, and I'm like, okay, there's something here. And then I started to talk to Wesley, because Wesley's in programming, so he's all about the data. And he's like, okay, well, you think you've got an idea, but you're not using our life savings. So by this stage, I'd gotten some of my inheritance, because of course Dad had passed away. And you're not using our life savings that we're going to we need for a house. Like the Australian dream is a house, somewhere to live, yada, yada. If we don't have some data. So basically I had to put together a business plan with market research, with as if I was going to an investor to persuade my husband that I needed our life savings to start a business. And he looked at the data, and it wasn't even really, I've looked at the business plan. I wouldn't have persuaded any investor, but Wesley believes in me. I still had enough data, by the way. He's like, right, well, I actually think there could be something in this. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I told you, didn't I? And I'm like chuffed. I'm like, yes, haha, got no idea, but there must be something here if he thinks the data's okay. And then we took it to my financial advisor because I mentioned I have all the insurances because I was sick, right? And he said, well, you said you wanted half your house deposit and your savings. You're going to need all of it. And for 2 months, I was like this in my bed going, sorry, I'm going to need how much money? So, yeah, in the end, we used my whole house deposit, which was almost $300,000, everyone that's listening.
Ooh.
To research and develop a brand over 5 years to launch in 2018 that have unique formulas that I had to hire a formulations chemist team at great expense. I knew I didn't want something, they're called white label products. I don't want to buy a formula, adjust it slightly, stick a label on it and call it my own. I wanted my own unique products. And we launched with 5 products. Originally, I was only going to launch with 1 product, a no nasty steroid alternative. Haha. But I thought, no, hang on a second. I can't launch a brand with 1 product. I have to have a core set of products that will help people with the things that I went through. So basically, again, I was frustrated Nancy. I was the target market. I knew there was a gap in the market. I knew I could solve it because I've been there. So we were at the forefront of biome research. We're at the forefront of biome research and ingredient technologies still. We're now pre and probiotic skincare. We're not just probiotic skincare. And the market research papers that I bought and the scientific data that I looked at, and for instance, I'm signed up to PubMed, for example, we're now in those research studies. So,
Wow.
when I think I spent so much money and I almost died, but I'm actually it's kind of not even real to me. I don't even have time to think about how far we've come because now I talk about it and the mind boggles. I had no idea that this was going to work, and I used my life savings to help other people, and I could have gone bankrupt, but here we are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like it's a leap of faith, but I feel like so many of those stories, like success stories, are like that. It's like I had $5 in my pocket, but I was gonna go make that audition, by golly, and the next thing, 20 years down the line, they're like a super movie star or something. There's something so awesome about those stories, and when you have this feeling inside of you, you just know it's got to work. And even if you don't know, you're still going to try with everything possible. I love that. I love that kind of story. And I have to say as well, I have a background in graphic design as well, a little bit. I just want to say your website looks fantastic. You have a great logo. Everything is cohesive. I was just so sick and tired of going on people's websites and stuff. And it just doesn't make sense. Color theory and attractiveness goes such a long way. It does. Especially with quality products, absolutely. So what is that probiotic ingredient, that bacteria, and how does that work for skin? How does that do?
So when we launched, we were using, and we still are in some of our products, but of course and all the ingredients are listed on the website, obviously, and there's data to back it all up. When we launched, we were the first brand in Australia, and then there was another brand in France, and they launched a month or 2 months before, and I'm like, Wesley, and he's like, they're in France, don't worry, Kiri, we're in Australia, it's okay.
God.
We've come this far, just launch. And I'm like, okay. So we have a probiotic called Lactococcus ferment lysate, and that's the product that we have in our 5 core products that we launch with. That's also in all of our other products as well, but we've also now got a thing called EcoSkin, which is a probiotic complex in our products as well. So some of them are just probiotic products, topical probiotic products, and some of them are topical pre and probiotic products. So the reason why they work, and like I'm a bit of a nerd. My husband's a bit of a nerd too, because of course he's a programmer, and I love
nerd out. Let's go.
Yeah, this stuff just
Let's go.
fascinates me, and I'm not even a scientist. So you have a biome on your skin, just like you have one in your gut, and everyone's biome is different, and the biome in your gut and the biome on your skin is affected by so many things. So, for instance, our biome develops if you're birthed via your mother's vagina in a different way to if you're delivered by C-section. It's just crazy. And if you live in a non-developed country, your biome is different than someone that lives in a developed country. So that just is mind-blowing to me. But often when you've got gut health problems or you've got skin health problems, your unique biome is out of whack. And for me, obviously my gut health I had severe leaky gut. So basically I had inflammation in the body. My intestines were distended and had unridged walls, and so they were flat. And so the things from my gut permeated the gut lining and went into my bloodstream, which is why it's called leaky gut. And so I had severe leaky gut, but I also had severe skin issues. And A, my gut health was out of whack, and B, my skin biome was out of whack. So if you're in that position, you want to balance both your gut health and your skin microbiome. And in the same way, you can take a pre and probiotic supplement, or you can take digestive enzymes the same way. That works for your skin as well. So you can apply topical pre and probiotics and other ingredients to help balance your skin microbiome. And that's basically top line. I mean, I could talk about this for hours. Basically top line how our products help people. So for instance, they contain other amazing ingredients as well, like extracts. So we basically bridge the gap between 100% natural products and medications. So we have naturally derived ingredients, and we also have chemically derived ingredients as well. And everything's a chemical, everyone who is listening. The air and the water we breathe is a chemical. So we have ceramides in our products, and we have urea, and you actually have, or supposed to have, urea present in your skin microbiome. So often people are lacking moisture or lacking specific things when your skin is compromised and your skin biome is compromised. And that's we've done a lot of research to formulate the products, and now I know just enough to get myself into trouble. And then when I don't know what I want to know, I ask my team of chemists.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. So like, that's some of the things I've been hearing recently as well. It's like you think about the skin. I mean, your skin is inside your body as well. Like the way I think of it is if I just take my hands and I go into my mouth, you're just tracing skin all the way down. The whole thing is, that's so cool. So you have such a like inside out approach, literally. So I'm thinking about this right now. It's really fascinating. And I think the world, by the way, is run on nerds, and there's nothing to be ashamed of. In fact, if I had a studio and I had not the limitations I had, I would say, let's go, let's talk about it for several more hours, because I think people need to hear that. People, I'll go back to what I was saying earlier. It's like, I'm just sick and tired of the one solution fits all. It just doesn't exist for skin. It doesn't exist for a human being.
Yeah.
You talk about how just by the way you are birthed through your mother's hoo-ha or whatever, your microbiome is going to be different. And that's one of the coolest things I think about your company is you go on there and correct me if I'm wrong, but people can find out their specific needs and get it's like you're going to a tailor and we're going to go, okay, well, you need this and you need that, you need this. One of the things I saw when I was researching your website and looking at different ingredients is maltodextrin. And I've spent so much time because my wife is a nutritionist.
Yeah.
And we stay away from maltodextrin, right? It has a high glycemic index, but I thought, well, no, you're not putting that inside your stomach. You're putting it on your skin. How does something like that benefit your skin?
Yeah. Okay. So we get a lot of questions about a lot of ingredients, and we always refer to science. For instance, just yesterday, I had a question about alcohol. Now, if we rely on one of those ingredients apps that'll scour the internet, they often pull information, and their information is run by an algorithm, and they just work out what's popular and throw that information up to you. So she had seen that our products contained cetearyl alcohol. Now, if you ran cetearyl alcohol through one of those ingredients apps, you'd realize that you'd be told that it's got alcohol in it and it's irritating. But cetearyl alcohol is actually a fatty alcohol, which is actually really good for your skin. So you need to take a step back, firstly, to, get your information about ingredients and whether they're food or skincare ingredients from a valid source. So that's the first bit of information to digest and think about. Next thing is, when you're ingesting something, it's different to when you're putting something on your skin. So, for instance, we're talking about gluten and dairy, right? If we ingest them, someone can have a reaction because they're celiac. I'm not celiac, but I'm intolerant, like 99% intolerant to gluten and dairy, and I've developed that because as we get older, it's often very common that we can't digest what we were fine with when we were younger. And we develop allergies as we get older as well. And I've developed more allergies and lost some allergies from things that I had as a child. When we apply something to our skin, depending on the ingredient, it works in a different way. Because, of course, for example, our EcoSkin prebiotic complex has been extruded and extracted and created from an original ingredient. It's been fermented in a process. So we're not ingesting these things, we're applying them topically, and the technologies and the data from the way that they work when you ingest them is used to create an ingredient that has been extruded, purified, and created to put directly on your skin to get some benefit topically.
Wow. Yeah, it's a bit of a conundrum, isn't it? Because on the one hand, you say, well, people say, not blaming this on you, blaming us on science, but science will say on the one hand, well, your skin is on the inside just as much as the outside, and everything's connected. Everything's connected unless it isn't, right? And that's one of the things that struck me with TSW as well. And so many people they express their condition differently on different parts of their body. And you can use things on this part, but you can't use things on that part. I mean, that isn't that just so crazy? I mean, I don't know how.
Yeah. I mean, see, this is the thing, right? So again, everyone's different. we know the science, I know the data. Again, if you don't think you can use it, you always patch test. You always you go for an allergy test. I would never do the gluten and dairy unless I had my digestive enzymes. I'm not allergic, but I feel better without it. You know your own body. You know what you should do. There's all sorts of different treatments that are not even skincare, like red light therapy or no moisture treatment. And no moisture treatment, by the way, was coined by Dr. Sato, and I speak Japanese. And one day I'm going to meet Dr. Sato. Hello, Dr. Sato, if you're listening. True no moisture therapy actually needs to be done in hospital being babysat, because it's bad for you to limit your water. We can go without food, our bodies, but we need water. We need the water, basically. So, and if you're not showering, you run the risk of infections, and we've spoken about infections. So I guess there's still misinformation in the information, which is what you're getting at. And for me, that was part of my problem. There was so much misinformation in the information that I didn't know what to do. And then it was driven by my anxiety, and then I got myself into more strife. And I think that's why I connect with, obviously I connect with people because of my experience. And I would never know 100% what somebody else has been through in their own health condition and concerns. But yeah, that's why I connect with people, because the other thing is that we never sit here as a business and yes, I'm trying to sell stuff, but I never make you buy anything. And a lot of the time people are like, I want to buy it all, Kiri, you're amazing. And I'm like, no, you're going to buy one product and that's it. I'm anti-marketing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of where I was going is you touched on it a little bit there about sometimes it's better to not use a product. And one of the questions I was going to ask you is because I know that you traveled over to the CAP clinic in Thailand. And one of their biggest things is the possibility of hardened skin. And for people who don't know, let's say you're going through TSW and you're putting a lot of emollients on or certain products on it. I interviewed somebody on my show, Alia Muhammad, who had insane hardened skin, this thick layer of keratin all over her body.
Yeah.
And it was really difficult for me when I was being treated by Olivia Friedman, because I didn't know, should I use this product? She's telling me this one worked, but now it's not working. And I think you're right. You have to be your own judge. And that's one of the reasons why I think we need to amplify voices like yours, because you're not just trying to sell something like you were saying before. You're trying to educate people and trying to teach them how to be their own detective, how to figure out what's right for them.
Yeah. I think it's also important to remember that there are different steroid withdrawal and TSW cases. So, for example, I didn't have a history of eczema. I had a history of acne. So my withdrawals, oral steroid withdrawals, presented differently. Now, the people that we talk to I've got perioral dermatitis, and I've got perioral dermatitis, and my doctor, incorrectly, I might add, because steroids give people PD, gave me a topical steroid. So those people have only been using a topical steroid here for a couple of weeks. That's a different case, right? So you've got to know your own skin. You've got to know the predicament you're in. You've got to understand the ramifications of what you're going to go through or what you're going to go through. And I just think that we need to be transparent about that information. Like, for instance, if someone goes, I've got steroid withdrawals, I've now got PD, here's my photo, and it's only around their mouth, I'm going to help them differently to someone that comes to me, Kiri, I've been referred to you by X who's had TSW. You helped her via coaching. I'm now got full body TSW. That person is going to be helped very differently.
Yeah. Yes. And for the benefit of people who are going through TSW, think they're going to go through it, is there any advice? And again, it will have to be high level, I suppose, but is there any advice or steps people could take to educate themselves on this exact topic? What would you say to somebody like that?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's lots of, like we've touched on, there's lots of information on the internet, on TikTok, on Instagram, search the hashtag TSW, topical steroid withdrawals, or steroid withdrawals, whatever. Find yourself a TSW buddy, because you'll need them for moral support. I mean, if I'd had a TSW or steroid withdrawal buddy, that would have been amazing. Find yourself someone that you think has a similar situation. Like has had eczema, has used steroids for X amount of time, or, has PD, has used steroids for 2 weeks, whatever it might be, there's no right or wrong, like skin concern, skin problem. And educate yourself first, but also find yourself a care network, a trusted care network. So for instance, when I was getting better, I had a dietitian, I had a naturopath, and I didn't see them all the time. Like, I'm not saying I didn't have them on call and they didn't come to my house, and I'm not like, I don't know, I'm not J-Lo, for God's sake. Like, they weren't on call like
Yeah.
that, Like, I just, I saw the dietitian and the naturopath like once every couple of months. I saw my endocrinologist because my problem was my hormones, right? More often, a hormone specialist. Get someone that knows about TSW that can babysit you. Get your GP on board so that they can recognize when your skin biome is infected, whether it's bacterial or fungal. You've spoken about your infections already. If you have an infection, you need medication, because it will rapidly multiply depending on the infection.
Yeah.
Eczema, herpeticum, you've already mentioned, can be quite lethal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so educate yourself, get your network around you before you go into TSW, or if you're in TSW and you know what's going on, try and find that network, because that's really important.
Yeah, I agree. And when you say get your GP on board, for those listening, I mean, your GP might not acknowledge that TSW is real, which is unfortunate and frustrating, beyond frustrating, but they'll definitely see the pain that you're going through. And if at least, if you can come out of that appointment with some mupirocin or antibiotics or just something to help you not die,
Yeah.
then it's worth it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. One of the things I think attributed to my being here talking to you, which I'm incredibly grateful for, is that I did that. You said to get everything sort of ready before that crazy moment where maybe you let go of the steroids or you start diving deep into the depths of it, because you will need as much help as you can get. You'll need as much money as you can get. A lot of people, such as myself, have started GoFundMe's just to afford whatever treatment. I mean, because this treatment, this condition rather, is just such a beast.
Yeah.
And the more people, I like to tell this joke, TSW victims, we tend to stick together, because holy crap. And I agree. If it wasn't for the people in this community, I would not be here. It's incredible. It's incredible the work that you're doing right now, Kiri, and I seriously appreciate you coming on the show. I wish I could talk to you for
so
many more hours.
I mean, we just scratched the surface. Maybe I can do another episode later, but I do have.
You're
to
more
do
than
some
welcome
work,
to come
everyone.
back on.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to come back on anytime you like, because I really feel there's so much to learn about all kinds of different products, not steroids, just all kinds of different things that can be helped. All these beautiful studies that are coming out.
Yeah.
it's incredible. And we're finding out so much about all of our health through the skin because of this horrible series of failures that have gone on in the medical system with this. Don't you think it's like the perfect storm
Yeah, I mean,
I see it. It's like,
yeah, I mean, if
it's
we,
like the poster boy of medical failures, I feel,
yeah, but I mean, the other thing that, like, if we're going to talk about that, like, I worry about some of these new medications that are being developed too, because if we think about the timeline of topical steroids, like, they were invented, say, 70 years ago, and they got the start of mass market penetration like 50 years ago, and now we've got
yeah,
things like biologics and Dupixent, which have only just been cleared for, like, to use for children. What's going to happen with them? I just think, again, I'm not anti-medication. I want data and transparency, and I want the medical community to work with holistic practitioners to help people, basically.
yeah, I totally agree. I'm not here to judge people on what to use, but that's the problem with things like Dupixent and all these biologics is there is no long-term data
Study.
out there.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen to you 10 years down. Maybe it's nothing, but maybe it's something. And then, I personally, I would much prefer ingredients and substances that have been around for a long time and don't have crazy side effects.
Yeah, me too now. Me too.
I know. And it really shows with your business, and congratulations that it worked. I'm so happy that you did take that leap of faith, because it seems like you're really making an impact out there. Thank you so much, Kiri.
Thank you for having me. Bye, everyone.
Yeah, bye. Pleasure. Peace
Bye.
out.